Hello there, Parth Sharma this side, bringing you the chess classics in which I'm looking top 15 games played by Vishwanathan Anand. So, we looked yesterday at number 15, which was his game with Ivan Sokolov from 1992 in Swift Rapid Tournament. So I forgot to mention the name of the tournament. This time at number 14, he's playing against Anatoly Karpov, the 12th world chess champion, and they had, I would say, bittersweet relationship because Anand always looked up to Karpov. He was one of his favorite players when growing up, and obviously he always mentions that how much influence Tal and Fischer had, but Karpov was also one of them who had some influence on him, and that's the sweet part. And the bitter part is Anand didn't like that Karpov was seeded straight into the finals of the World Chess Championship in 1998, and Karpov had a lot of backing, as we all knew that aborted match with Kasparov in 1984, where he was leading 5-3, and all of a sudden when Kasparov started to win, the match was aborted and the rematch took place later in that year, or I should say later in 1985. So Anand and Karpov had, I would say, yes, as I always said, a bittersweet relationship, but that doesn't take that fact away that Karpov was indeed one of the greatest, and so was Anand. So I look at this game. This was played in 1996 in Las Palmas, in Canary Islands in Spain, and it is named as Vishyssoise. It's a drink. It's a French drink, and we are not about to talk about drinks. We will talk about the game. In this game, Anand is white, Karpov is black, and this is a very interesting game. So, because Anand opens with knight to f3, usually Anand's standard customary move is king's pawn to e4, and he plays knight to f3 here. Karpov responds with d5, d4, e6, c4. Pretty common Queen's Gambit declined structure, but in this case it became Queen's Gambit accepted structure. And with e4, this is Rosalind variation with b5, and now a4. So white is trying to gain its pawn back, and along with that he's also trying to establish not only its center by controlling these squares, but also a rapid development, especially on the queen side, where black is already busy in grabbing pawns and defending that extra pawn. And there we go, c6, another pawn move in the opening. A takes, c takes, and now b3 by Vichy. So he's trying to clear whatever storm there is with the extra pawn, especially the c pawn, which can become deadly. And now the best move should have been to play knight to f6 to attack the pawn this way. Karpov played bishop to b7, attacking pawn this way. And let's see what happens if plays knight to f6. Well, then b takes, knight takes, c takes, gets the pawn back, and we will look the similar kind of structure with bishop to b4. Now both sides have 5 pawns each. Now to knight b to d2, black actually castles faster than white in this case, and this was, I would say, this would have been better, but the problem still remains this queenside development and this pawn taking control of these two squares, and knight would eventually block this way, but this bishop can develop this side as well, so this would be okay. After b3, Karpov plays bishop to b7, and I think that he should be looking to castle king's side ASAP in this case. He plays bishop to b7. The similar sort of structure happens but with the bishop on e4, and there we go, pawn takes on b5. Now knight to f6, and now bishop to e2, putting more protection to this knight and also to preparing castle king's side. Karpov does the same. Bishop to e7. Now both sides castle, and now knight to c3, developing the queen's knight. That's very important. Developing your pieces is very crucial. The problem again still is how to develop this knight, because if this knight lands on d7, another problem arises is where does this knight hold its future to, because these two squares are also taken by the pawn on d4. So it's rather, I would say, very tricky dilemma that black is in, that how to play this knight. And you will see this knight will give a lot of problems as far as black's queenside structure is concerned. So now bishop is attacked, but it's defended by the knight, and normally in the open position, which it is here, you tend to give your knight away for one of the bishops that black has. So, but in this open position you have to preserve that bishop, and you play bishop to b7. Knight comes to e5, so again restricting development of this knight. And if knight comes here, then knight c6 might be annoying, and this passed pawn can also be protected by playing bishop to f3, and that can create a lot of problems for black. And normally the best move here should be to counter attack by playing queen to c7, attacking this knight. But then queen d3 defends this knight and also keeps defending the pawn, and the position would still be okay for black, I would say. Not, I would say, advantageous, I would say rather holding, and because he can be caught into the relentless attack if it comes. But he plays e6. Now he's really worried about this pawn on b5, because it is, as I said, it was hindering the development of this queen's knight, and it in fact continues to do so. And here you can take the pawn, but then knight takes, and this knight doesn't bother any problems to black. It can come to c7, and it can make its home on d5 as well. So understandably, taking the opportunity of the situation, Anand plays this superb move, bishop to f3. And this looks like a counterintuitive move, because you are exchanging your good bishop, although it is also a good bishop on the long diagonal. You are exchanging this bishop and you're trading bishops, and now you with this bishop you will, if this bishop doesn't stay here, then you will be playing with knights, and on the board it clearly looks like white's knights are better than black's knights. Look at, again, I keep always emphasizing on this knight. Look at this knight on b8. It is looking absolutely, I would say, dubious sitting there. So Karpov, realizing that trading bishops won't be a good idea because of the position of the respective knights, he plays knight to d5. It was pretty well considering before playing knight to d5 that black can actually play queen to c7 in this position. And if it does so, then bishop f4 looks really nasty. And also there is this tension between the bishops, and that can be devastating. So understandably, after bishop to f3, Karpov plays knight to d5. This was captured, e takes, and now rook comes to b1, protecting the pawn. So he doesn't want to let black develop easily. And again, this is a very peculiar situation, because this bishop on this long diagonal was looking really pretty, but now with this pawn on d5, this bishop is actually looking really poor, biting on this pawn, which has restricted its movement. And also, if it moves away, then knight c6 is always welcome for white, or I should say always welcome by white. So rook to b1, and if you take, then it eventually puts a lot of pressure on black, because this bishop would be attacked and white can line down behind this bishop. So he plays queen to b6, and If you take, then queen takes. So bishop to e2, putting more defenders to the pawn on b5. So Vishy is making sure that he wants to cramp Karpov's position as much as he can, because again, it's very funny how you keep emphasizing this knight. Now this knight cannot develop on d7. It could have developed on d7 because the queen was on b8, but now with the queen on b6 doesn't control d7 square, this knight's future on d7 is also doomed. So now Karpov, in order to simplify the position, takes the pawn, and now rook takes. So now attackers are keep coming at black, and on the queen side the structure is wide open, but there are a lot of pieces which aren't the ranged piece as vertically as they should be. And this is the big point. You want rooks here, not knight and bishops, and that's the point. The queen is attacked, and now queen has to move, which it does. Queen to c7. Okay, you have a rook and a queen, but you want this rook as well to coordinate with these pieces, such as playing moves like rook to b8, but it's not possible. And that's a big worry for black in this position, which I would say is a worrying sign going into this game. Bishop to f4 by Karpov, and it was very funny that bishop to f4 by Anand, and it was very funny that Karpov was running very low on time. He had a lot of pressure. Anand has built a lot of pressure on Karpov right from the word go, especially with the pawn on b5, and now that pawn is not there. Still Anand finds ways to keep attacking, keep barraging on Karpov's pieces, whether directly and indirectly. So now there is a threat to play knight to g6, unleashing this bishop on this queen on c7. So he plays bishop to d6 to block that, and now comes bishop to d3. So again, relentless attack on black. The threat is to play queen to b1, not only looking here but also looking at the bishop on b7. So bishop comes to a6, and I will give you some time. Take a pause and think what Anand played in this position. Well, if you found it out, that's awesome, that's brilliant. And if you want to see what Anand played, it's bishop takes h7 check. Beautiful move. And you see these kind of ideas, somewhat like Greek gift ideas in this position, where white sacrifices its king's bishop to open lines for its pieces, especially by throwing their knight towards black king, or playing queen h5 something, and which we will see here. Bishop takes h7 check, and if you, let's say, go king h8 when queen h5, is very bad news for black. So after bishop takes h7 check, king has to take, and now queen h5 check. King g8 is the only move, and this is the idea: to bring the rook back, to play rook h3 and queen h8 or h7 mate. And you can notice this knight is controlling this f7 square, so if f6 comes, this square is already guarded by the knight on e5. And this I would say, again, relentless attack. This looks like a defensive move. You are putting your rook away from being captured, but on the same time you are also threatening to play rook to h3. And the best move here looks, on the looks of it, it looks like f6 could be a better option. And as I've already highlighted, that this knight is controlling this, so after rook to h3, what will you do? Well, white will play rook to h3, but then you will take the knight, and now this isn't defended by any of the white pieces if this queen leaves this h5 square. So pawn takes, and queen to c4. Now black is threatening the mate on f1 with the help of the bishop on a6, but white is right on time. After queen h7 check, king f7, this is all forced, e6 check, and if king goes here, then queen takes g7 check, will be devastating. So king comes to f6, and now bishop to g5, and again if you take the bishop, then queen takes g7, will be end of the world. So king has to take the pawn, and now rook comes out of the capture zone by playing rook to e1 check. Once king d7 is played, now queen takes g7 check, and if king c6, then rook h6, and if king c8, then you can play rook c3 with the help of this queen, and this queen will be lost because it will be in the pin. So f6, the move well worth considering in this position, but here Karpov, running very low on time, takes the knight on e5 with the bishop. Rook h3 comes anyway, so there is no time of recapturing because mate on h7 and h8 threatened. He plays f6, the escape square for this king, and now pawn takes on e5 by Vichy, and his threat is to play e6, and then again reinstating the threat of queen h7 or queen to h8. And not to forget, the bishop would also be attacking the queen, so that's another point with e6. So he plays queen to e7, Karpov, and now comes queen to h7 check, king to f7, and now rook to g3, threatening rook takes pawn check, winning the queen. And if obviously no time for taking this rook because of this, and if you try to defend this by playing rook to g8, then comes queen to g6 check, king to e6, king to e8 would also lead to what I would say e takes f, and after queen takes f, rook e1 check, and this will be that because this rook will be on priest. So after rook g3, Karpov plays king to e8, and now Anand crashes through by playing rook takes g7. So queen escapes the capture by playing to e6, and now e takes f6, and if bishop takes, then rook e7 check. So there is no time of taking this rook on f1. Knight to c6. So finally on move 29th does this knight come out of its cage. Whew. What a long time, if ever there was. And Anand plays rook to a1 here, and for black the best move here should have been to play either rook to c8 or rook to a7. Rook to a7 looks a bit pretty peculiar, but that could have been a better option. But Karpov plays king to d8, so now he's getting away from this rook to e7 thing, so that this knight can at least gets itself off from protecting this e7 square, and also to possibly try to play rook to e8. But the problem remains this pawn, which is a passed pawn now, and it can go down and become queen, so that's another issue. And here Anand should have played bishop to c7 check, and that would have been really strong. But obviously you want to make this rook also work, and you have to make sure that there comes no back ranker, which is coming in this case. So giving a square for the king is Anand plays h4. So bishop to b7 offering rook trade, so Anand is having nothing of it. And now Karpov is looking to repeat the position. Anand is also playing the same, but here after before bishop a6, Anand played rook a1 as we saw, and in fact he can force checkmate in this position by playing bishop to c7 check, and king c8 is forced. If king e8, then again you will just sacrifice this rook and then play rook to e7. So bishop to b6, threatening rook c7, queen e5, rook g8, so pinning the rook, so rook has to capture itself, and now rook takes c6 check. This is all forced, king to b8, now bishop to a7 check, rook takes, and now you take the rook on g8, queen block, because if rook comes up, then queen c8 will be mate, queen e8, queen takes e8, king b7, and queen c8 is a checkmate. That. But Anand played rook to a1 in this position, and Karpov repeated the move, bishop to b7, and now he goes to d1 so that there is no repetition here, and now he plays bishop to a6 again. So Karpov is running very low on moves. He doesn't have any decent move. This rook hasn't moved in the game since. It's staggering. And now Anand plays another move, another brilliant move, I would say, queen to b1, and a spectacular move. He is basically trying to protect this back rank so that he can also play queen to b6 in this position to get a gateway to mating this black king. So that's another, I would say, tremendous resource. He plays rook to f6, and after bishop to g5, Karpov doesn't resign. He actually lost on time. He had 4 moves to make in this position. In fact, I would say 5 moves to make in this position, and he couldn't make those 5 moves in those 2 hours which are allotted for first 40 moves. So here Karpov lost on time. Well, Karpov wanted to play king to c8 in this position, but I'm afraid after queen to h7 threatening rook c7 check, black is already in heaps of trouble. Bishop d3 looks like delaying the inevitable, but I'm afraid rook to c7 check comes anyway. After king to d8, bishop picks the rook on f6, knight comes to e7. This is all desperation, and after this rook takes. Now rook a6 looks like attacking the bishop, but then bishop tucks back to g5, and if this bishop moves, let's say here, then you can simply play rook to b1 threatening the back rank mate, because this king cannot, and I would say will not ever come out of this back rank. So this was already lost, and it all culminated after bishop g5. Karpov lost on time. So what an amazing game this was. This is at least on number 14, because there were also 13 more spectacular games which were, I would say, in my eyes, were better than this. So I hope you liked the video. I hope you liked my analysis of this beautiful game, Vishyssoise game, and thanks for watching. Stay safe. Cheers. Bye.